Alright, this is John Kohler with OKRod.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, coming at you from my backyard here in October. And today we'll be answering your questions. If you have a question you would like me to answer, I will post a link down to my community tab where you can ask your question there. And then I may select it for next month's Q&A. So thank you for everybody that has been submitting questions for me. Alright, so I can continue to do this. Hey guys, it's John Kohler. I've got something really special for you from January 12th to the 18th. I'll be hosting a one-of-a-kind, super intimate retreat in the Caribbean on Culebra Island in the Spanish Virgin Islands. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. Just 4 to 8 of you will get my personal one-on-one time with me, learning everything about organic gardening and holistic health alongside my buddy Kailash Niels. Spots are super limited, so if you ever want to hang out with me in person, this is your chance. Hit the link below to reserve your spot, and I can't wait to see you there. Alright, so first question is from Julie Jiz 8984. Can you recommend a fitness tracker similar to a Fitbit, but that doesn't have EMF radiation Bluetooth and that does not have a backlit screen, so I can track my steps, miles without blue light and radiation exposure? All right, Julie. So, I mean, here's the thing, like, you don't need a fancy fitness tracker. I mean, I know the Fitbit could track a lot of different metrics, but if you just want literally to track your steps / miles, you could get what is called a pedometer, and that's actually what my dad uses. He always tends to lose these things, so they're like $10, and they have an LED screen, no blue light, and it basically just counts your steps. So it's just super simple, super easy. That being said, what I would say is that if you do have a cell phone, you could put your cell phone in the airplane mode, and most cell phones have at least a step counter in there, and you could get a blue light blocker thing so you could actually review the numbers at night. That's what I do when I remember. And that's if I have my cell phone on me, which most of the time I actually don't. But when I travel, I always do, so it's kind of a good reminder to see how many steps I get in when I travel. The other thing I was looking into is an Aura ring, and then you could wear those rings, and then that's kind of like a Fitbit, but it does a lot more. And then that one, I think they have an option in the settings. You could keep it Bluetooth turned off, so it actually stores data all day in the ring. And then at night when you charge it, you can then turn it on, and then you could actually have it transfer the data to your phone. So I think that may be another option for you. I haven't fully researched all the different Fitbit trackers out there in some bit of time. It is something I want to do one of these days, but yeah, haven't really researched that lately. All right, next question is from Cat for Animals 004. How do you know when a fig is ripe and when it won't burn your mouth or make your lips numb? I've gotten figs from a farmer's market that seem to be right, so I'm not sure what's going on. I guess I'm just allergic. All right, so there is a few things in figs that could actually cause your lips to burn. There's like the latex, which many people may have like a latex allergy. Then there's like the physin, which is a proteolytic enzyme that then will dissolve the skin on your lips and your tongue, potentially even make your tongue bleed. So how do you know when a fig is ripe? So the thing is, if you have a fig tree that you're growing in front of you, like I grow, man, I have like at least over a dozen fig trees. And I have these huge fig trees that are at least probably 10 years old, and there's just lots of figs on the tree, right? I could go up and squeeze a fig, it's not ripe. When I see a fig, it starts to, like, the little stem of the fig starts to bend, and then the fig starts to lean down. That's when I know, like, the stem gets, like, floppy, basically. Then also you might see some ooze coming out of the bottom of the fig. That's when you know the fig's ripe. Then when you pick the fig, there's no white sap that actually comes off as you pick it, right? That's another big telltale sign. This is unfortunately pretty much never going to happen when you guys buy figs at a farmer's market or at a store. So, like, to know if you really have a ripe fig is to grow a fig tree so you could see at all the stages and you could experiment, like, oh, pull a fig when it's not ripe and all this white stuff drips off. You get that on your skin, it might start make your skin itch, right? But if you get figs that are just so like the birds are getting them and they're just dropping off, I mean, they're pretty much not going to burn your lips. Now, the other thing you want to do is that at the stem end, where the stem is, you want to basically use a knife and cut it off, because around the stem and right near below the stem where it connects to the fruit, as it kind of goes like this, you want to cut a lot of that off, because that's where a lot of that stuff that's going to irritate you, happens. The other thing I also try to do sometimes is once I get figs and I pick them, if I put them in my fridge and they kind of mellow out in the fridge, and then they tend not to burn as bad. That being said, the really big problem with figs is that when they're picked too early, yes, even by farmers and farmers markets, unfortunately, because they got to make a buck too, there is still too much of that white latex and the physin enzyme that will cause the mouth tingling and burning, and some people may be allergic to. In addition, there's also many kinds of figs, and I've noticed that some of my figs tend to burn less and generally have less burn. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I think also too, figs grown in like the desert, you know, especially when ripe, because of the heat, tends to like kind of burn off some of that like stuff. And so like my figs in the desert seem to like burn less than my figs, say, grown in Northern California. All right, next question is from Julie Jizz 8984. Psyllium husk, is it good or bad? Number one. Number two, what is the truth about iris sea moss and carrageenan? Is the iris sea moss bad because it's used to make carrageenan, which is bad? Thank you. All right, Julie. So, I mean, you know, I look up a lot of studies, and, you know, here's the thing in studies, there's a lot of nuance, and that means basically there's a lot of variability. Is psyllium husk good or bad? Well, you know, I had an ex-girlfriend, Amy, rest in peace, Amy. She had passed due to her challenges with her eating disorder that lasted for many years, even after she was on the Dr. Phil show, and Dr. Phil couldn't even help her, sending her to the best places. But when Amy would eat psyllium husk, she would violently react and start vomiting. I mean, she would also make herself vomit in some situations purposely, but in this case, the psyllium husk really had a bad reaction with her. So, I mean, I would say for Amy, psyllium husk was really bad. Now, for many people, psyllium husk may be good. It may feed our beneficial bacteria and act as a prebiotic fiber. That being said, the way to know is to get a microbiome test to see if psyllium husk or psyllium prebiotic is something that will benefit or not benefit your microbiome, right? Psyllium husk will feed certain bacteria in our guts, and some people may already have a ton of those bacteria in there, so they don't need to feed it more. But for many people, they need to feed the bacteria that the psyllium husk would feed, right? I think that eating psyllium husk on a regular basis could be all right, especially my favorite way to get it is actually in Raw Food Romance Alyssa's wraps. She has psyllium husk in many of her wraps. It gives it some flexibility and pliability, and they just taste amazing. All right, second part of your question is, what is the truth about iris sea moss and carrageenan? Okay. So here's the thing, you know, definitely in studies, isolated carrageenan and extracted carrageenan has been shown to be not so helpful. That being said, carrageenan may be also a prebiotic fiber. But then, is sea moss bad because it contains carrageenan and a small percentage of carrageenan in there is the question. So my answer is, it depends. You know, how much sea moss are you eating? Are you drinking like 2 quarts of sea moss gel every single day? Then I'm going to say that's probably, seems to me, excessive personally. You know, if you're eating it or having the gel once a week or once a month, you know, that seems reasonable and you feel good afterwards. You don't really have any situations. You know, I think that carrageenan found in a whole food matrix, eaten in the proper proportion, I don't think it's going to be a big issue. Personally, although, you know, everybody has allergies to every different single food on the planet. So I would say experiment in small quantities and don't like make it a staple in your diet. If you want to eat it here and there, I think it's great. You know, that's probably what I'd say. All right, next question, Julie Jizz. Thanks for all your questions, Julie. 8984. The only way I could get miso, master chickpea miso, is to have it shipped through Amazon, which does not use refrigeration. Is it safe for the miso to go several days without refrigeration? Absolutely. Yeah, so Miso Master is a live miso. So yes, absolutely, miso could be shipped without refrigeration for a few days. That being said, these days I don't tend to get the Miso Master chickpea. It used to be my favorite miso, actually. These days I get the Cold Mountain, basically organic soy miso these days, and actually I get the reduced sodium versions. You know, back in the day I was like maybe against soy, and nowadays I'm like, hey, you know, soy in proper amounts and proper moderation, not making your diet a soy-based diet, becoming a soy boy. You know, I think eating some soy here and there can actually be quite beneficial for your health. So, you know, the miso is one of the ways I do it, and I think one of the big issues I have also with the chickpea miso is that the sodium level tends to be quite high, and my goal is to, not eat too much sodium like the standard American. All right, next question is from 7YM Lord. Whenever I go to my local international grocery stores, while they have beautiful produce, very little of it is labeled organic. Do you just stick to the dirty dozen list when choosing produce there, or does your store carry organics? All right, 7YM Lord. My international stores, Asian markets, international market here in town, on rare occasion might have something organic, but for the most part, everything's not organic and it is conventionally grown. So what I will say is that, just because it's conventional doesn't mean it's bad. Okay, so don't think that, but think, hey, can I buy these same products organic? And that's what I would prefer you guys to do. A lot of items at the international market or at, Asian or Hispanic supermarkets can be found at other places. That being said, they can have some specialty items that you're not going to find elsewhere. And of course these specialty items such as, gobo root, for example, just thinking one out of thin air, ong choy, which is like right here in the camera, you're not going to find that at Whole Foods, but they will have it at international markets. I think that if you're going to eat some of these, more international produce items and it's not organic, and you're not buying the same one every single week and you're rotating items and you're still eating a lot of organic items, I don't personally think that's a problem. I think it's of a great benefit to not be so restrictive and not just shop at Whole Foods, not just shop at Sprouts or Trader Joe's and only get the organic food that's available, but to, broaden your horizons and get other types of foods that are not available, organic. Hopefully one day all these items will be available organic. I mean, of course, the better solution, of course, is to grow some of them yourself. So like a lot of the things I grow in my garden in the summertime are actually international foods that you're not going to find at a standard grocery store, like tropical vegetables. Have you guys ever pondered why, as raw vegans or people into raw foods, we idolize tropical fruits, but why don't people idolize tropical vegetables in the same breath? I'll be soon having a video exactly on this topic. I mean, if we grew up and lived in the tropics and we're supposed to be tropical fruits, guess what, guys? We should also be eating tropical vegetables, and actually that's what my diet mostly consists of in the summer because that's what I'm limited to growing in the heat of the desert. All right, so yeah, anyways, I would say that definitely abide by the dirty dozen list when you go to international markets. And unfortunately, a lot of the specialty foods are not really categorized if they're like high pesticide residue or not. One of the foods I like to get, actually I bought 80 pounds this morning, is jicama at a Hispanic market. And actually that's just conventional. While I could get it organic, oftentimes organic, the price would be like 5 times more money. I got it for like 33 cents a pound, 3 pounds for $1. So it was like super cheap, below wholesale actually. I think if I had to buy it organic, it might be like $2.50 a pound, and then the stuff's really old and not looking too good. Of course, I just peel that anyway, so I don't really eat the outside. But yeah, I would encourage you to also wash produce items well. Next question is from JulieJiz8984. What is your opinion on natural swimming pools? Can they work in the tropics? I noticed that you mentioned the Caribbean Agroforestry Institute you visited had a swimming pond. Thank you. All right, so that's a subject that I haven't fully dove into yet, but yes, I believe that natural swimming pools are amazing, and we shouldn't even call it a natural swimming pool. Natural swimming pool is like a human-centric term, like, oh, we're having a pool that we could swim in that is quote-unquote safe, right? If we were out in nature and nature was working in balance and everything in nature is self-balancing and there was a pond and there wasn't like all these chemicals and chemtrails and who knows what falling into water and whatnot, we would naturally, for the most part, with few exceptions, be able to swim in there and not have any issues. But once man started concentrating things, making chemicals and all these things, and then actually all bacteria is bad, and that's why they got chlorine to kill all the bacteria in the pool. It could even mess up your skin microbiome. Then we could commercialize it and then keep it quote unquote safe when nature gets out of balance. I haven't fully investigated swimming pools or natural swimming pools in the tropics, but I definitely believe it is possible. And they are swimming in their little pool at the Permaculture Institute that I visited. All right, next question is from Sunny Aleska, during the summertime, what is your setting for watering your garden? I live in Vegas as well and was advised to water only in early morning and evening. I do have dripping system. My garden is all day in the sun and plants literally burn. Also, do I need to create a shade of some kind? Any tips on how to do it? I have 2-foot raised beds, thank you. All right, so Sonny, my drip irrigation system goes off multiple times a day. I learned this from Leslie Doyle, who would water, I don't even know, 6 to 8 times a day. I personally think that's a little bit excessive. I think I watered usually 3 to 4 times a day, which is the max of my water timer. And basically I would water like basically after it gets hot. So the plants, kind of like us, like if you think about it, like could we just chug a gallon of water in the morning and be like, oh, all our water needs are met for the day? No, as we're going about our business, we're basically sweating, we're losing liquids, and we can't just drink 2 gallons in the morning and then another gallon at night, right? You can't do this to your plants either, especially during the heat. The water coming out of the faucet has run underground to your house, so it's nice and cool compared to the air temperature and the temperature of the plants sitting in the sun. So that's why usually I water around usually noon, right when it starts to heat up. As it gets pretty hot, my plants are getting hot, I water them with the cold water. They feel the cold water at their roots. They take up the water through their roots. It goes through all their cellular structure, and then they transpire it, meaning they basically, like we perspire, the plants will let the moisture out of its leaves. So you basically kind of create steam, but you really can't see it because it's so minuscule. But that's how they cool themselves off. At the same time, they're pulling up the water through all their different cellular structures. They're also pulling up nutrients as well, so that helps them to grow also. So I water pretty much at like around noon, 2, and 4 usually. Sometimes it's like an hour between. It really just depends on the plant, because you got to observe the plant and then see like, hey, is it wilting out? And if it's wilting out, that's a sign that you should have already given it water maybe a half hour ago. So you really have to kind of pay keen attention. But I would basically generally start with watering around noon, 2, and 4. And then maybe like you could do a deeper watering in the morning or in the evening. And I do, it's a few minutes each time. It's not like a deep watering. It's just enough to get the roots, get them wet so that they could start pulling up the moisture to keep themselves cool. Now you also asked about creating a shade of any kind. None of my garden is shade except from the shade that is, made by my house that the sun can't penetrate, basically. In the olden days, I did put up shade cloth. I have this whole structure that I built, so I could put up shade cloth fairly easily. But I just stopped doing that because it was just a pain in my butt. And my growth is growing above the shade cloth structure. Some of my growth this year is like 12 feet tall in like literally just a few months since like May or June, which is insane. But I would say that, if you wanted to grow something like tomatoes that really don't like the full sun, maybe a shade structure would help. So a shade structure can adjust the climate so that you can grow crops that it may get too hot for here in Vegas. That being said, my whole garden is filled of crops that basically don't need any shade, and it just thrives. So, that's 2 ways to do it. I prefer to grow plants that don't need shade, so I have to deal with shade, taking up a shade cloth, putting it down a shade cloth, all this kind of stuff, right? Just keeps it more simple for me. All right, next question is from Ali Via's World. I would love to hear more about how you treat your garden naturally with rock minerals. Not sure what they're called, and helpful insects. Do you even add fertilizer? If so, what kind? All right, so how do I treat my garden naturally with rock minerals? So I get this stuff called rock dust. You can't go to a local nursery and ask for rock dust. They'll look at you like you're from Mars. However, you can go to a place like rockdustlocal.com where you can order rock dust and they ship it to you. Also, you could go to your local feed store and ask for a product called Azomite, Azomite. That also may be carried at some hydroponic grow stores as well. But the azomite is basically A to Z of minerals, so I basically add that into my garden. I recommend like 1 pound, I think, for 100 square feet, although I put more than that when building my raised bed, so I really did a nice application of rock dust. And then every season, as the soil level kind of drops down a little bit, I'll basically make a new mixture of compost, worm castings, rock dust, soil humates, insect frass. Those are my main things I'm using, and then I basically top off my beds with that mixture. So that basically reinvigorates and adds nutrition back to the soil, because if you think about it, every plant that I'm growing in my garden, all these plants you guys are seeing around me, I mean, this is my whole garden, it's like overgrown. Like, all these plants are pulling up nutrients every single day. I mean, that's how they're able to form, how they're able to grow. And when I eat these plants, I get the minerals that is found in the soil. And if your soil doesn't have the minerals, then your plant's not going to have the minerals, right? So it's important for me to add the minerals to the soil so that plants could bring it up, and then I could eat them, and then I could get them into me the most natural way. Not through a mineral supplement, but through the plants. And likewise, because they are pulling out all these minerals, I need to constantly replenish them and put them back in to the soil. This is something, unfortunately, standard agriculture, even organic agriculture, industrial agriculture does not do. They don't put trace minerals in the soil. It's not a requirement for even organic, or definitely not conventional, to add minerals to the soil. Some maybe extra credit organic gardeners or farmers may be doing this, but standard agriculture adds 3 minerals, NPK. And then agronomy, the study of soil science, may say plants need 15 to 16 minerals. So that's all they're going to put in the soil. They're not going to put up to 70 different minerals that can be in my rock dust in small, minute amounts, right? Now, the other way I add minerals into my garden is by basically spraying them on. So I do a foliar feed of things like kelp, which can also add the C minerals. Also something like the C crop, c-crop.com, is basically a sodium reduced ocean water solution that I spray on so now my plants could absorb the minerals from their leaves themselves. So I do both these practices, and it makes my plants more resilient to the stress and the weather. It also causes them to be more nutritious, and also because now they're getting more nutrition, they could do all their different plant metabolism and all the different enzyme reactions within them to create more phytochemicals. So, I mean, this is kind of like, it shouldn't be advanced stuff, but I mean, this is kind of considered advanced stuff because nobody really does it. It's quite unfortunate. So yeah, so that's how I do it. And then do I even add fertilizer? So, I mean, I do add in every transplant hole, if I'm transplanting little starts, I add like a mixture of Dr. Earth's fertilizer, organic, with worm castings, insect frass, rock dust, and soil humates. So it's very little just to get the plant started, and then afterwards they're fending for themselves in the soil. And the whole thing is that if you have good soil and you add in all the things I'm telling you, right, basically the plants will make their own fertilizer through the soil food web, which is the bacteria and the fungi living in the soil. They basically break down or eat the minerals, eat the organic matter, and then poop out water-soluble nutrients for the plants. I mean, that's a very simplified version of it, but that's how it works. So I don't like to say I add fertilizer like most people would add Miracle-Gro. I add all nutrients to feed the soil, which then feeds the plants. And then on helpful insects, so I have brought in things like pollinator bees, or solitary bees like mason bees, to pollinate. Once I got them established, they kind of I make them a home. It's literally made of like these little straw tubes, and they hatch every spring, and then they do all their pollination, and they kind of lay new eggs, and they come back every year. They don't sting like regular bees would. The only other eggs that I generally release, and actually I missed this year, are the praying mantis. I had a lot of praying mantis eggs from previous year's hatch, so even without putting them out this year, I had a whole bunch. And then the other thing I do, I don't really try to buy insects because it can kind of get expensive, but I find that praying mantises are quite essential, so I will buy them. But otherwise, I don't really buy any beneficial insects. I do, however, try to attract them, so I grow this thing called sweet alyssum that can attract beneficial pollinators and insects as well. And of course, I have plenty of herbs and flowering plants like basil, my mint, that dog's loud, lavender, and whatever tends to be flowering, like all the regular bees and little hoverflies and all these other insects will be kind of hanging out doing what they're doing here. Oh, and of course I did bring in earthworms to get the kind of population started, and of course having good soil will encourage more earthworms in your soil, which are, I don't know, I consider worms insects. I don't know if that's technically right, but they're basically breaking down organic matter and basically pooping out worm castings, which once again is plant food. All right, we're down to the last question. Advia Explorer, do you have any advice for teeth hygiene, how to heal and maintain healthy teeth and gums? Do you have a routine or products? Do you ever get dental cleaning or fillings with a dentist? All right, so yeah, this is a major mistake I made when I first got into eating a raw vegan diet, I was like, animals don't go to the dentist. I'm not going to the dentist either. Big mistake. So don't repeat it. So yeah, and then I would maybe haphazardly brush, because like, oh, animals don't brush or floss their teeth. I don't need to do that either. That was not a good thing to do, especially in my earlier years when I had higher fruit consumption and higher dried fruit consumption, and just actually higher fruit juice consumption as well. It did not do good to my teeth, the high fruit, dried fruit, and, you know, free sugars in the fruit juices I was drinking, and especially drinking things like orange juice in high volumes and things like pineapple juice that would then erode the enamel on my teeth because I was not mineralizing my teeth. So big problems. I've learned a lot. So I guess let me go ahead and give you my recommendations. Number one, find a good holistic dentist near you. That's my top recommendation, guys. Seriously, go see a dentist. They're not your enemy. They can be our friend. Now, some of the things even a holistic dentist may recommend may not be the most holistic, so research these things. And, you know, of course, we always have good, better, best. Is it better not to get a cavity filled with a plastic porcelain filling? Of course, which is better than a mercury filling, but maybe not as good as 100% ceramic filling, or just have a cavity that's drilled out with nothing there, right? Well, I think you guys need to do what's going to be best for you, but I think drilling out the cavity, getting rid of it, getting it filled properly, and then, you know, taking care of your teeth so that you don't get more, or just taking care of your teeth from the first place so you don't get a cavity in the first place, despite eating a fruit, dried fruit, and fruit juice diet, right? There are practices you can do that will build up your enamel and make it strong and have a good mouth microbiome so you don't run into problems like I did, okay? So number one, yes, go see a dentist. I do recommend getting regular cleanings, because cleanings, they could get in there, they could check your gum pockets, so at least you can monitor them to see how bad or good they are. And then also get a deep cleaning, which is something you can't do just with a toothbrush at home, because they need special tools, and the dental hygienists are properly trained to do all that stuff. I suppose if you're handy, you could do it yourself, but you're just never going to do as good of a job that you trying to do it in a mirror as somebody else working on your mouth that's trained many hours to do that, okay? So that's my first tip. My second tip is that I want you guys to brush and floss regularly, right? I use this special toothpaste from Germany, linked down below to my Amazon shop. It basically has hypoapatite, which basically will remineralize your teeth, as proven in published studies. You know, and then I brush with a special brush that actually clicks, so you don't put too much pressure when you're brushing. Like a regular toothbrush, you could blast it, and I used to do this because I thought brushing really hard is good because I'm scrubbing off more stuff. No, now you're scrubbing off more enamel, and you don't want to brush too soft because then you're actually not cleaning it too well. So now they have toothbrushes that basically are like a torque wrench that, like, basically if you press too hard, it won't let you brush, and if you could press still too light, so you want to just kind of get the balance. But at least with this special toothbrush, you'll learn the proper pressure. That's super critical. This is something that the dentist told me when I went to the dentist after, I was like, yeah, after so many years brushing wrong, I'm like, why hasn't any dentist told me this before? Well, number one, I hadn't gone to a dentist in a long time, right? Number two is I want you guys to floss regularly, right? What causes the problem and the bacteria and stuff is the food that you're leaving in your mouth, you know, especially when you go to sleep at night or just during the day. I tend to floss, usually the most important thing is to floss immediately at night, before you go to bed for sure, and then maybe like, you know, after your breakfast, if you get stuff stuck in your teeth. Sometimes when I do get stuff stuck in my teeth, I'll just floss. And I use this flosser, once again, link in my Amazon shop. I don't have to like put floss between my fingers and shove my fingers in my mouth. I hate that. I have a special tool. I can just floss my whole mouth in literally like a minute or two. I think a mechanical flossing method with the string is quite beneficial. Yes, it is made out of plastic, and yes, I have to throw them away, and it's not environmentally sustainable, but hey, at least I don't have, you know, garbage collected between my teeth. That being said, if you're against like throwing away plastic things and all these things, then I would just highly recommend getting a water flosser. Link down below too to my Amazon shop where I recommend a water flosser. This way it's it's different than actually the mechanical string flosser that I use. They work a little bit differently, so I think they complement each other perfectly. But if you don't want to get the string flosser, you could use the water flosser, and you could just crank it up It still won't remove everything that a mechanical flosser will, because a mechanical flosser could get in and get things that are literally stuck. That being said, the water flosser will actually floss in between and get it even cleaner than the regular flosser would. And then also too, of course, I put an oral irrigator solution in my water flosser. Once again, link down below to that. It's a Bright solution meant to kill the bad bacteria using essential oils. So that's another part of my routine. And then, of course, after that, before going to bed, I take what's called the Psyllium melt. This is also something I learned from the dentist. That basically will change the pH of your mouth so that your mouth can rebuild overnight. Also, it contains xylitol that has been shown in studies to kill bad bacteria. And then I mouth tape so that I'm not breathing through my mouth, because if you breathe through your mouth, it dries out your mouth. And then, which actually, for most of my raw foods career, I was, like breathing through my mouth a lot when I was sleeping, which is not good. It dries out your mouth, and then also could make your teeth situation worse. So, I mean, I've learned so many things, man. So now you're getting like literally the download. Now, another thing I do, is drink green juice regularly, right? Fruit juices can mess up and cause gum inflammation like gingivitis, which many raw vegans, I believe, can have, especially if they're doing too much fruit, especially not taking care of their mouth. But fruit juice especially can exacerbate that. Whole fruit doesn't tend to do that as much because you have the sugar still in the fiber matrix. It's not free sugars. That being said, green juice does the opposite. I have a recent video, link down below to that, where I discuss high nitrate lettuce juice can actually restore and reduce gum inflammation and rebuild your oral microbiome. So I'd recommend switching with lettuce juice or other deep green juices. If you don't have green juices to do that with, that's all right. Get some wheatgrass powder, barley grass powder, put in a little bit of water and swish it around in your mouth, especially after drinking fruit juice, after eating fruits, right? This will at least get your mouth more alkaline, hopefully also create some nitric oxide, especially some beet powder. You want to make sure you get the right beet powder. Not all beet powders will raise your nitric oxide levels. I think the one I interviewed Dr. Nathan Bryan years ago, link down below to that video so you guys could learn about that. He has a product that I buy to basically build up my nitric oxide in my mouth, which can improve my mouth microflora or microbiome. So yeah, I'd say swish around with some kind of green juice or beet juice, beetroot juice, or other green juices regularly 3 or 4 times a day. I think that's very important to remineralize and get your mouth alkaline. That way your teeth can rebuild themselves, right? So I think those are some very important tips that unfortunately most raw vegans are not going to tell you, and I've had to learn through the School of Hard Knocks. I've also basically had all my mercury fillings removed, and then actually also had a root canal in my early years that I didn't know any better, and then I had more recently gotten that pulled out because I believe that root canals, well, they could be done safely, but if your root canal is leaking or there's bacterial growth in there, then they could get quite nasty quite quickly. And, so basically I removed mine just to be sure and rule it out as a possible cause of any kind of chronic health conditions that they may cause. So, I think that's all my dental tips and techniques that I'm going to share with you guys today. As you guys can see, it's getting darker, the sun's going down, so I got to get running. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode today, me answering your guys' questions. And if you guys want me to continue this in the future, it's important that you post your questions in my community tab so that I have a bunch of questions to pull from. If I don't have enough questions in the future, I may just start skipping this episode and not answer questions and fill it with other episodes instead. But I really enjoy answering your guys' questions, where I get to share some of my knowledge that hopefully will just benefit you guys just a little bit to take your health, your diet to the next level, so that you too could be healthier and actually learn from me going through the School of Hard Knocks. At least everything I've learned about the School of Hard Knocks and research I've done is benefiting you to make your lives better. And that's one of the reasons why I live. I'm here to make YouTube videos that provide free information to help make a difference in the world in your lives. So thank you for watching me. And if you guys got to the end of this video, hey, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and share this with other people that want to learn about my personal dental techniques and tips that I've learned over the many years that may be able to help them as well. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new and upcoming episodes that come in every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I show up, what you'll be learning, what new people I'll be interviewing, what questions I'll be answering, or what new knowledge bombs I'll be dropping on you. So make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check out past episodes. Past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to teach you guys all about eating a nutrient-dense, raw, fruit and vegetable-dominated, plant-based diet the best way possible. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always best.